Loading. All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Dynasty Wire. My name is Ivan Herrera. I am joined alongside my partner in crime, Mr. Spencer Smith. And in this week's episode, we have a great one. We're going to be going over not only the news that's going around the NFL, we're going to react to the Stephon Diggs trade that took place last week. We're also going to get into some buy lows, and then we're going to also then get into the verse of the week. But before we go any further, Mr. Spencer Smith, how you doing, my friend?
Man, doing good, doing good. Glad to be back here another week down in the books. And I'm excited for this episode. I love doing some buy sells. I like doing some trade breakdowns and of course getting to talk about the Stephon Diggs situation. He was going to be one of the players I put on buy sell, but I just figured since we're going to be discussing that, we'll probably already kind of throw in our buy or sell thoughts. But other than that, man, how you been?
I'm in well, man. I think I'm really excited for the fact that number one, we finally got this live stream thing situated. So we are going to be going now live with our podcast as well. So not only will you get the audio version that Spencer does such a masterful job on editing for us, that way we sound professional, but now we're going to combine that with a video long format that will be going up every single week. So this is now live on our YouTube on the Dynasty Wire. So for those of you that are listening to our podcast, we of course number one want to say thank you, but do want to give you the option to also join us live. So that way, if you want to send over any questions, we'll be happy to answer them live and give you our reactions to that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition to our new segment. So Spencer, this is your forte and your floor. So the floor is all yours.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we're going to start with, I know this isn't directly the NFL, but this player is incredibly popular, and it has been fun if you've been watching the UFL. But some slight unfortunate news. UFL Brahmas kicker Destroying has been placed on injured reserve and will miss at least 5 weeks. So it just sucks. I cared a lot more for the UFL or the XFL back in like 2020 and a little bit last year. I'm going to be honest, I have not really paid attention other than the Destroying stuff. I've not really been paying attention this year, but does kind of suck to see a player like him who you've been wanting him to get his chance. He finally gets his chance in the UFL, and he's been incredible. He's out there kicking it incredibly. He's making tackles. It's been really cool to see, but he'll miss 5 weeks. Back into the NFL. The Colts are looking to trade up in the NFL draft for Brock Bowers, saying, quote, Indianapolis has never traded up in the first round under general manager Chris Ballard. However, Bowers would be worth the jump as an elite playmaker and pro-ready tight end. Now, to me, when I'm hearing this, and Ivan, I want to get your take on this as well. To me, when I'm hearing this, it makes so much sense. The Colts don't really have a big tight end presence right now. And a player like Brock Bowers, alongside Michael Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce and Jonathan Taylor, and Anthony Richardson, I believe that this would be an incredible move up. The question, of course, is just what are you going to have to do? What are you going to have to give up to move up? But what would be your thoughts, Ivan, on if the Colts were able to land a Brock Bowers?
Dude, I think this would be such an amazing pickup, especially for a rookie quarterback like Anthony Richardson. Currently, I was listening to the Mel Kiper first draft with Phil Yates, and they had Brock Bowers projected going as the number 10th overall pick, which would actually land him with the Jets. However, the Jets aren't really in need of a tight end. They need more of a solidified offensive line. So I believe it would make sense if the Jets were to trade back, allow the Colts to move up. Now, what they will need to give up to go along with that pick to go to pick number 10, I think would be something that would be worth it, considering that number one, you're going to give your quarterback a weapon in Brock Bowers, who is by far the best tight end prospect in this draft, being that's a little bit thin this year regardless. So I think it'll be a good pickup overall.
Yeah, I agree. All right, up next here, Malik Neighbors was hinting on a recent live that Jaden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk might be teaming up on the Raiders. Now, this was just I truly don't understand where he's coming from, how this would even happen, because, of course, Brandon Ayuk there would have to be a trade with the 49ers to get Brandon Ayuk to the Raiders, and then the Raiders would have to also move up to be able to get Jaden Daniels, which I'm going to have some news as to how high the Raiders would have to move up to get Jaden Daniels. I don't know. I saw that news and I was like, yeah, I don't understand that. Jaden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk teaming up on the Raiders. I don't get it. Either way, I digress. Cowboys star wide receiver was The news yesterday on him was there might be a potential holdout coming for Cowboy star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who is not expected to attend the team's OTAs. But this morning it was reported that the star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb confirmed to reporters that he'll be in Dallas for the 2024 season, despite the rumors of him potentially holding out for a new contract. All he had to say was, quote, "Yeah, I'll be in Dallas." Now, could just be saying he'll be literally in Dallas. Might not actually be doing anything. He might still hold out. But I think if I'm CeeDee Lamb, as much as I would love to get a contract right now, why not wait to see what's going to happen with Justin Jefferson? Because Justin Jefferson is going to reset the market. And we know that if you're not paid this offseason, the money only goes up. You're going to get a better contract next offseason. That obviously comes with the risk of injury or, a down season, what have you. But I don't know. I just don't know if I'm CeeDee Lamb, if holding out is the good move here. That's just my opinion. New Patriots wide receiver KJ Osborne was better than the opportunities he got with the Vikings, says Kirk Cousins, saying, quote, "I always felt like KJ was better than the opportunities he got. He went to free agency and went to New England, and I'd love to see him have a huge year in New England, kind of with a bigger role than what he had in Minnesota to show what he could do." Says a lot coming from Kirk Cousins. We know that anytime KJ Osborne was forced into that number 2 role, he was pretty good. He was very solid, and I got to agree. I do like the talent of KJ Osborne, just not necessarily the situation that he was ever put in. Ivan, what do you think of KJ Osborne?
I agree. I know a buddy of mine, he is a huge Vikings fan, and he had a very similar take. I think what really hindered his opportunities was the fact that they added Jordan Addison last season, and being that Addison is such a talented number 2, that naturally reduced his work. And I think that him going to a new situation is going to only help his opportunities, especially if he does have a bigger role. Not someone that we're saying is going to be a high draft pick within fantasy football, but someone that could have a good opportunity for you, especially if this is more of a late round flyer.
Yeah, I agree. Next up here, Colin Cowherd says that he has been told directly that the Commanders will be drafting Jaden Daniels. This was pretty big news when it came out the other day, and by the other day, I mean literally yesterday. Colin Cowherd saying that, he's got his sources or whatever, that the Commanders will be drafting. That is the thing. It's not might be drafting. He is saying that the Commanders will be drafting Jaden Daniels. That's crazy. Wow. So that to me says that Drake May's going number 3. Now, again, the draft this year starts at number 2. We know this. The Bears are taking Caleb Williams. It's too easy. The craziness of the draft, the possible trades, the possible oh my gosh moments are going to start number 2 overall. And personally, I don't hate the Commanders drafting Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't hate that. I think personally, still I have Drake May as my number 2 quarterback in this draft, but it's 2A, 2B for me with him and Jaden Daniels. If they selected Jaden Daniels 2 overall, I personally don't hate that move. Drake May now, man, does he go to the Patriots? Does somebody trade up to get Drake May? I would hate Drake May to go to the Patriots because I could be wrong. Hey, look, it's a new coach. We got a new team, and last year everybody was dogging on CJ Stroud going to this defensive head coach minded team. New coach, new culture, new system. At the time, no for sure stars on the offense. He's going into and he's the number 2 overall pick. And, look, he proved us all wrong. Do I think Drake May could do that in New England? I really don't know. To me, Drake May's best landing spot as of right now, outside of like a team like the Vikings or somebody being able to trade up with the Patriots, which I don't know, man. I don't know if the Patriots are going to want to do that. But what are your thoughts on if the Commanders do end up taking Jaden Daniels?
I think that would be the best fit for him because they already have a few weapons there that could help him out right away, considering that you have number 1, Terry McLaurin, solid wide receiver. And we've spoken many times about how getting a young quarterback, especially being that they're so cheap as far as their contract, getting them so many weapons to help their development goes a long way. So I think that them getting Jaden Daniels would help him in his situation. And I agree. For some reason, I just have a bad vibe with any young quarterback right now going to New England, considering that their offense and their team really isn't ready for a new young quarterback. Now that can change as they develop, but really development is such a huge part of these of these young quarterbacks and how they progress in the NFL. And I believe that Jaden Daniels to the Commanders makes the most sense considering they have Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, you have Terry McLaurin. That's a good young core to put around a young quarterback that will come into the league. And I think that's just a good situation overall.
I agree. Next up here, Colts second-year QB Anthony Richardson says that he's, quote, on a mission entering the 2024 season, saying, quote, I've never waited this long to get back to playing football. I'm just on a mission this year. Once that mission's complete, then I'll be good. I love hearing this from Anthony Richardson. Now, the issue is that Anthony Richardson's health it also needs to be on a mission of remaining true, because otherwise it doesn't matter. Every game he played, well, he really only played 3 full games, actually 2 full games, 3/4 of a game, and I don't know, a fifth of a game. I mean, he was out pretty early in that 4th one, but he was injured in every single one. There was something that happened in every single one. Something small, maybe something that took him out for a play or two, but something happened in every single game. And I remember, I believe it was Trevor Lawrence, may have been Joe Burrow. I'm getting it confused, but I do believe it was Trevor Lawrence last year that was telling Anthony Richardson, like, to be careful. Like, he doesn't have to risk his body every single play, every single drive. And
right.
Anthony Richardson was not drafted because he's this elite passer with this incredible accuracy. Now, he does have a cannon of an arm. He's not the most accurate. We saw that Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, their season became better when Gardner Minshew was on the field. And of course, Anthony Richardson's going to bring that running ability, that rush. If he can stay healthy, then yes, for Dynasty, I would love to have Anthony Richardson for the next 3 to 4 years, because that's going to be Cam Newton level rushing ability for your fantasy football teams. That's not probably going to translate to NFL Cam Newton success. I'm not saying that, but this is a fantasy football show. So for fantasy football, I could see some Cam Newton level-esque play from Anthony Richardson if he were to stay healthy. That's the issue, right? So I hope his body's on a mission. I hope he's on a mission. Ivan, what do you think of Anthony Richardson going into year 2?
Well, I loved your take that you had a few episodes back around Anthony Richardson, and a lot of it is because Anthony Richardson, as well as the style that he plays, already gives you such a high floor in fantasy football. And he averaged, I think his points per game would have stressed out to 20 plus, and that's just with him being an underdeveloped thrower. And so we've seen that guys can get better. We have seen that with Josh Allen. We saw that with Jalen Hurts, and they have the core there within the offense of Indianapolis to make it work. Now, to your point, we did see the progression of rather the fantasy value of wide receivers like Michael Pittman increase once he got hurt. However, this could be one of those things where he can develop into the passer that could be elite. But because he has that high floor already, I'm a huge buy into Anthony Richardson, so much so that I think the only person that I would consider, like if we were doing like a startup, the only quarterback within these rookies that I would put him maybe behind would be Caleb Williams. But I think if you were to look for a trade, like say, for example, if you're a struggling team, and we're going to go over trades later on, but if you're a team that is struggling right now, has no quarterback, and you had like the 103, 102, knowing that the 101 and a super flex would be Caleb Williams, I would trade that 102, 103, see maybe if I can get Anthony Richardson, considering that I think the situation right now is more solidified than that compared to maybe a Drake May, and we don't know where Jen Downs is going to go, but I would much rather take Anthony Richardson in those situations.
Yeah, I definitely love Anthony Richardson. The Caleb Williams v. Anthony Richardson debate is actually a pretty good one. Caleb Williams going to the Bears, having that situation. He will not have the rushing upside that Anthony Richardson does, but he has a much better arm than Anthony Richardson. So then that kind of gets into, are we talking 6-point touchdown or 4-point touchdown leagues? And that's just, that's a whole conversation for another day. But I do agree that I believe that I'd probably take Williams over Anthony Richardson, just including the weapons around him. And dynasty-wise, I'm going to get – hindsight's going to be 2020. Caleb Williams might go out and have a Carson Wentz in 2 years and do something to his hip and his legs, and it might not work out. But more than likely, that's not going to happen. I think I'd much rather have the Caleb Williams than Anthony Richardson long term. But speaking of the Bears – Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy is visiting with the Bears per Adam Schefter. Worthy set the record for the fastest 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine earlier this offseason. So what was crazy was Did he set the record and then break his own record, or did he tie the record and then break his own record at the combine? Like he tied the NFL record, did it again, and then broke it, or did he break? I can't remember. It was one of those because he did it twice, and
Right.
Which is crazy. That's just crazy. But I'm telling you,
He's just really fast.
very fast. If they can get Xavier Worthy at the top of the second round, which is, I'm assuming, the reason they're visiting would be because they're going to go Williams 1, and instead of getting Odunze 9, they're going to go something else, maybe offensive line, defensive player. And then their belief is they can either trade back up into the bottom of the first or be able to take them early in the second round. You have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and then Xavier freaking Worthy. My goodness, man. My goodness, that's crazy. Excuse me. What would be your thoughts on the Bears being able to have a speedy player like Xavier Worthy? He is a big, in my opinion, he is a big hit or miss prospect, like boom or bust, just to his play style. There's a lot of boom players that you could relate him to. There's a lot of bust players that you could relate him to. But with having the safety net of 2 wide receiver ones already on the team to learn under, now they are vastly different from you. Keenan Allen is not that speedy Xavier Worthy type of guy. He's that big body, incredible route runner. DJ Moore, incredible smooth route runner. He is a bit quicker, but of course Xavier Worthy would just be the Deshaun Jackson of that wide receiver trio. But if he did go to the Bears instead of them getting Odunze, what's your take on kind of his value going into this season, and maybe just what you think his role would be in that offense?
Right. And I think, you're right. That's the concern that we're seeing a lot with Xavier Worthy is the size. The speed is off the charts. It does remind me, of a similar comp of Deshaun Jackson. So someone that can be heavily utilized in the offense where he can be explosive. Because let me see, if they're right now 9th overall, they can trade back and get a few assets, or maybe even like, I don't know, I just love Rome Odunze so much. I just can't imagine a team not wanting to have him there, because especially with Keenan Allen being a little bit older, you have DJ Moore, who's a good young player still. But it would make sense if they're looking to retool that offensive line, because there are some good linemen that they can potentially get and swap for that number 9th overall pick. And then from there you get, because this receiving class is a pretty deep one. So even if Xavier Worthy wasn't the guy, you still have Adonai Mitchell that can be available late. If you maybe even go into the early 20s, maybe even get yourself Brian Thomas Jr. So, it's an option. It makes a lot of sense. And that's probably, the perk that they have right now with 2 top 10 picks, where they can see, okay, we're going to go with Caleb. What do we do with 9? Do we want to trade back to get some more assets, or do we just stay in pat and then get ourselves another wide receiver that could be a difference maker, considering that Odunze, we can agree, is probably within that tier of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbor. So I would say stay put, because I love Rome Odunze, and I think that having him to go alongside DJ Moore for the future, because I don't think that Keenan Allen is going to be a part of that future for some time, but you give yourself a good young reset with DJ Moore already getting paid, but now you have a rookie contract with Rome Odunze as well as Caleb Williams. I think it makes for a great pairing, but that's just my personal preference, because I just love to see an offense flourish.
Well, the comps that I have seen for Xavier Worthy, and again, this is just the way, like, we're talking, you're on way this side to the right of it, or you're way to the left. Like, this is how vast his comps can be, just from his college days, and of course his speed, but his size. He's an inch taller than this first person, Jalen Reagor. He's an inch taller, but their speed. Jalen Reagor did not break any, records, but he was the reason the Eagles got him. If we can go back a few years, the reason the Eagles got him. I know it's tough, but we got to do this. We have to do this. The reason the Eagles got him, instead of getting Justin Jefferson and other people in the draft, the reason the Eagles got him was because if we can go back to that wide receiver room at the time, it was Alshon Jeffrey. Oh man, I can't even. Who was the other one?
Torrey Smith.
Yes, Torrey Smith.
And Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, so it was this slow, big body receiving room, and they needed that speedy guy. Somebody related, and somebody not related as in, family, but somebody that was relative to a Deshaun Jackson, which Jalen Reagor, if we can remember when he was coming out and he was a prospect, He had so many punt returns for touchdowns. He had an incredible year at TCU. He was a prospect he was a very, boomer bust. But if he could be that guy for Philly, because they didn't have speed. They did not have speed in that wide receiver room. And that's what they got Jalen Reagor for, was this guy could be the next Deshaun Jackson. That's what the Eagles, that's what we as Eagles fans were sold on. Didn't happen. Okay, he sucks. But Xavier Worthy is also compared to Deshaun Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same size, around the same weight. Xavier Worthy is incredibly faster, but that same style of play. So we're talking one side of the fence or the other on how this thing can go. But I agree. But here's what I have to say, because I agree on the Rome Odunze take. Here's what I have to say, regardless of a receiver that you get if the Bears draft them. We have to remember, and this is basically how I was feeling about JSN last year when the Seattle Seahawks took him, is that I believe Tyler Lockett actually only had a year or two left. I didn't think it was going to be they restructure him and re-sign him. It's a bit unfortunate now.
Right.
If I was taking JSN, it's because I know I'm going to have to wait a year or two. Whoever the Bears get, that's the same thing you're doing. Except Keenan Allen has only had significantly better years than Tyler Lockett recently. I mean, he just came off the best year of his career. So I don't know if he's going to go away in a year or two. I don't think the Bears are going to want to let him go. If he wants to leave, he'll leave. But if the Bears can help it, they're going to want to keep him. So to me, whoever the Bears get, it's unfortunate in my mind. This is just my take. It's unfortunate because whoever it is, if it's Rome Odunze, if it's Xavier Worthy, I think you're grabbing him for one of two reasons. Number one, the hope that Keenan Allen goes down and isn't the same when he comes back. Or number two, you're fine waiting a couple years because that's how long it's going to take for that person to really be able to emerge. We have other names, and I'll refer to this guy all the time because he proved me wrong 2 years ago. Brandon Ayuk took 3 years. Brandon Ayuk took 3 years to come out. And so there are cases where if you held on to that guy, year 3, he finally broke out. But that's just my take on whoever the Bears get because of what their wide receiver room looks like right now.
Well, you know what? And just to add to it, the reason why I guess I wouldn't be so reluctant is because I always have a reservation whenever an older receiver or just an older player has a career setting season this late into their career. And my thing with Keenan Allen is that we've had him miss a few games in back-to-back seasons. He missed 7 2 years ago, missed about 4 or 5 where he wasn't available for your fantasy teams later into the year, especially in the most critical time. So that's the reason why I guess I would be a little reluctant to not get Rome Odunze, just because Keenan Allen hasn't been someone that you can consistently rely on health-wise, though the talent still is there at a later part of his career, which is great. Yeah. But I don't know. That's just my take on it.
The health-wise is a very good take to bring into it because as I'm looking here, he missed 4 games last year. And
it was 4. Yeah.
Missed 4 games and still had the second best statistical season of his career. He was 149 yards short of his 2017 season, but one more touchdown than his 2017 season and 6 more receptions than his 2017 season, which I keep referring to 2017 because that's his best season of his career. Yet he played 3 less games than he did in 2017. So definitely was on pace to have the best season of his career.
Absolutely.
He only missed 4 games. But he missed 4 games last year. He missed 7 games in 2022. He missed 1 game in 2021. He missed 2 games in 2020. And then from 2017 to 2019, he played the full season. 2016, he only played 1 game. 2015, he played 8 games. So yes, there is health concerns. And of course, as he's only getting older, he's 31, he'll be 32 come the season start. There definitely is health questions. Now, let me just say this. As far as this Bears receiving room goes, Keenan Allen is a guy with a rookie quarterback, definitely not going to be drafting him as high. It's going to have to be a situation where last year, one of my favorite picks in last year's drafts coming up was Mike Evans. He was being so undervalued, and he was criminally low. And I just knew, okay, if I take him here, which in single quarterback leagues, I believe he was going around round 9, which was absolutely atrocious. I knew, okay,
Right.
even if I take him here, I'm already getting him at his floor. So even if he does nothing better than where I'm selecting him right now, I'm
Right.
still fine. But I know he's going to, unless
Right.
it's something like that, which right now haven't seen. I haven't been doing too many mock drafts because normally I don't start doing that until after the NFL draft. So we'll see. But unless it's something like that,
Mm-hmm.
probably going to pass on Keenan Allen this year. I don't think Caleb Williams, as great as he is, it took the greatest rookie season of all time for CJ Stroud to make Nico and Tank Dell relevant.
Right.
I think that, I mean, Caleb Williams is going to have, we're going to have back-to-back greatest rookie seasons of all time in order for Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. So one of them is going to be the guy you're going to wish you would have had. I think
Right.
it's going to be DJ Moore.
I agree.
My opinion.
Now, we did see 2 back-to-back good wide receiver seasons when we had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So who's to say that these guys can't do a back-to-back quarterback rookie performances for us?
This is true. This is true. But moving on, that is all the news that I have. So, Ivan, this is now the buy-sell situation here. And why don't you just go ahead and roll us into it?
Yeah, sure, of course. So buy or sell, we just came off of us going over all the entire rankings that we had for each position. We are going to revisit it after the actual NFL draft does take place, because now that we'll have an understanding on where these players go, it'll be a lot better to kind of get a better gauge on what the roles are going to be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into a buy or sell, because now with the NFL draft just around the corner, you're going to get so much speculation of what is it going to do for current players that are on rosters. How will this impact their value? So what we're going to do is we're going to each provide a player that we're buying on and one that we're selling on. So for context, when we're saying that we want to buy a player, this is someone that we believe is being undervalued currently to what is the, I guess, fantasy market saying. So what is the community really saying about these players? And if we believe that there is a dip that you can take advantage of, this is a player that we would consider that for you to buy, considering that there isn't much attention around them. And when we're saying sell, typically this connects with someone that may be a little bit overvalued in our opinions, someone that may be getting a little bit too much hype, or may have had a situation that has impacted them via free agency or through a trade that will affect their value in fantasy. So I'll go ahead and kick it off first, and then we'll kind of do it back and forth. So we'll begin with the buys, and then we'll transition over to the sells. So the first one I have for myself is I'm going to go ahead and say that you need to go ahead and buy yourself some Justin Herbert. And the reason why I'm big on Justin Herbert is because for starters, Justin Herbert has now a brand new head coach. And we're seeing that this head coach is someone that is obviously really run heavy, someone that led the nation in his stint as a head coach in run usage, and had the same kind of situation when he was a pro football coach. And what we're seeing as well is we saw the Chargers have to deplete the entire offense. So we just mentioned Keenan Allen, he's now with the Bears. We see Mike Williams got released, he's now with the Jets, and Austin Eckler is now with the Commanders. So this offense is going to look entirely different. And because of this, we have seen Justin Herbert's ADP go down significantly. And the reason why this is actually a big deal is because I believe that Justin Herbert is such a phenomenal talent at quarterback, and I don't think this is much of a controversial take, in my opinion. However, being that his ADP is dropping significantly, this is where you want to actually buy the dip, because I don't believe that the Chargers made this move, or made the moves that they did, to allow Justin Herbert to be depleted. And I think that a good quarterback like the one that I think that Justin Herbert is will not only be able to make up the gap, not this season. I don't think that in Dynasty, this is someone that you want to buy as a short-term solution. This is one of those, you make the move to get Justin Herbert so that way you can be better within the next 2 or 3 years, because he is so good at the quarterback position. And I don't think that he'll ever be as cheap as he is than he is right now. So that's why, and also to add on top of that, despite what we can say about what Bruce Staley was doing as a head coach, Justin Herbert was still averaging 20 fantasy points per game with a dysfunctional head coaching staff. So just imagine, once John Harbaugh is able to restructure this entire team, put the right pieces around Justin Herbert, I believe that this offense will look much better, and you will be actually benefiting from the fact that you went out and got Justin Herbert at the cheapest you can probably get him, which is this season right now. So that is my buy for this upcoming season, which is going to be Justin Herbert.
I agree with that take. I love Justin Herbert. I think that the fact that his ADP has gone down, his value has gone down, of course, because of all the moves that they had to make for cap reasons. And one of the things that Keenan Allen said, which I completely agree with, and I think I said this when we discussed the move when he went to the Bears, was the Chargers had asked him to restructure, and his response to it was, "I just came off the best season of my career." No. So if it's a business for the teams, it's got to be a business for the players too. And
Amen.
Chargers did what they had to do. But I love Justin Herbert, and I agree. He is on that level of players who they can make up the gap. But I agree, it's one of those things where you're trading now so that in a couple years, you're going to have that foundation. If we look, his rookie season finished QB9, then QB2. Then in 2022, he did finish QB11, and last year he missed 4 games, still finished QB17. I do believe if he would have played the full season, he would have finished a top 10 quarterback, but, we won't know. But I do know that the Chargers are now in a good position. They're going to be a lot more run heavy as the years go forward, and I believe that that's going to alleviate Justin Herbert having to be Superman all the time out there. The defense is going to be a lot better, which has been a gigantic weakness of the Chargers, and that too is going to help Justin Herbert. Really good take. I like that one.
Thank you, sir. So go ahead, Spencer. Now go ahead and give us who is your buy target.
Yeah. So my buy is definitely I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. So I like Dak Prescott a lot. He is 30 years old, and Dak Prescott is coming off of a QB3 season. If we look at his seasons overall, when fully healthy, Dak Prescott is really an incredible quarterback for fantasy. Going all the way back to 2016, a QB7 finish, QB10, QB14, QB2. 2020, he only played five games, so finishes the QB32. But 2021 comes back fully healthy, missed 1 game actually, but QB8 finish, and then in 2022, QB18, and this last season played all games, QB3 finish. So there has been a little bit of injury concern, but Dak Prescott, definitely a guy that I love for Dynasty. Last season, we saw that starting in Week 6, he kind of caught on. So Week 6, QB1, then a QB3 finish, QB2, QB1, QB17, QB3, QB3, QB14, QB32, QB15, QB7, and then in Week 18, finished QB3. And in the wild card game, even though they lost, still finished as the QB2. So Dak Prescott coming off a very, very good year for him. And right now, there are contract disputes. So what does that mean going forward? So when you're making moves right now, the fact that there are contract disputes, the fact that it's very possible he's going to be a free agent, he's probably going to be signed this time next year, but this time next year, he might be playing for a new team, either due to free agency or possibly a trade. Don't know. We'll see. But as of right now, it's not looking like a deal is going to get done. And even if it does, it's still good regardless. Like either way, Dak Prescott and Dynasty Fantasy Football is good regardless. We just saw 35-year-old Kirk Cousins get a gigantic deal, 4 years. Now, 3 of them are definitely going to be played. They could get out before the year 4 starts, but a really good deal, especially for fantasy football in Atlanta. Dak Prescott is going to get something similar to that this time next year, whether that is with the Cowboys or that is with another team that has the weapons to go win now. Atlanta's a team that now with Kirk Cousins, they're a playoff team. Regardless of the ability to actually win a Super Bowl, they are a guaranteed playoff team now with Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott is the exact same thing for any other team. If they've got the weapons, he pushes them into the playoffs. Now, what does this mean for fantasy? He's got the somewhat rushing ability that you like. He's got an incredibly accurate arm. He's got a pretty good cannon of an arm. And Dak Prescott's going to be getting that contract, like I said, this time next year. So this part of somebody's career, the 2 things we want to see in Dynasty is the talent still at their age. He has definitely got it. And a big contract. It's what he's about to get. So both of those things are good. Now, what is the value for a player like Dak Prescott? Well, if you would have looked on Keep Trade Cut, which I don't 100%, I don't hate it, don't love it. Just going forward, keep this in mind. Anytime you use either a trade calculator, Keep Trade Cut, Dynasty Dominator, whatever it is that you're using, just remember these things are used as a frame of reference. They're not gospel. This isn't you look at it and this is exactly what it needs to be. Keep Trade Cut has thousands of submissions a day. So this is just what the community believes he is worth right now, which is a good frame of reference if you were trying to see if a player is being overvalued, undervalued in your opinion. So if we would have looked at keep trade cut just a few months ago, Dak Prescott would have been worth a high first round pick. Right now, Dak Prescott is worth at peak right now, 24,106. So a mid first round pick or an early first round pick in 2025, or straight up for players like Jalen Waddle or Brandon Ayuk. So to me, especially in a Superflex league, if I have Jalen Waddle, I'm even throwing in a second rounder. Jalen Waddle, a second rounder. Let me go get Dak Prescott to be either my main QB or my Superflex QB. I love Dak Prescott going forward. I think he's got a good solid 5 seasons, including the one coming up, a good solid 5 seasons coming up that are going to be, something could happen. He could get injured, but barring injury, he's going to have some incredible top 5 years, definitely top 10 for fantasy for the next 5 seasons. So I'm buying. I definitely love the value right now of a mid first round pick. Who at 106? Let's just break this down. If you need a quarterback, who at 106 is going to be there that's better than Dak Prescott? Because Caleb Williams is going to be gone. Jaden Daniels is going to be gone. Drake May is going to be gone. And none of the other quarterbacks that I could list are going to be worth a Dak Prescott. So J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., all those guys, none of them are equal to Dak Prescott. So if the community believes that he is worth a 106, now not everybody, so you might have the 106 and you go try to do it because Keep Trade Cut said so, and the guy who has Dak Prescott believes how we do, that he's worth a top 3 pick, then you might have to do the 106 and something else, maybe, a second round pick or another player, which still is fine because nobody at 106, if you are a QB needy team, nobody at 106 is going to do it for you. So I would definitely give up these prices to go get a Dak Prescott.
That's a really good take, man. And I think when you utilize the Keep Trade Cut as a point of reference, like you said, you can then gauge, okay, where's the community valuing at? And this is why we're able to make the opinions that we're making. And yeah, you're right. It's amazing that his ADP has been actually dropping. According to Underdog, he's actually gone down three from what he was just three spots from where he was just a few weeks ago. So he, for some reason, is going down. I have no reason why. I would imagine that probably the whole contract situation. I don't think he's going to hold out. It doesn't strike me as the kind of player that will do that. But yeah, you're right. Someone who has now, for the past 3 years, has had 2 seasons where he's thrown over 4,000 yards. So someone that can not only throw for volume, but can throw for efficiency, considering that in those seasons where he's thrown over for 4,000 yards, he's also almost hit a 70% completion percentage. So someone who, even though we're Eagles fans, can appreciate for the talent, and someone that can be very, very talented for your fantasy rosters as well. So, okay, cool. Now let's go ahead and transition to the sell portion. And again, just to reiterate, these are players that we believe that are going to take a dip because of certain things that may have happened. And my specific player is taking a dip because of the fact that we just went over that. Actually, I don't know if we've gone over it in detail, but with Stephon Diggs now going to the Houston Texans, I'm selling on Nico Collins. And he was a great story last season, especially after Tank Dell went down and you saw the emergence of CJ Stroud. Nico Collins was the main guy that really benefited from that. He was a top 7 wide receiver in fantasy football and PPR formats, and someone that absolutely blew up and was actually on a lot of championship rosters. And unfortunately, with the Buffalo Bills trading Stephon Diggs to the Texans now have a new wide receiver that's going to be primarily taking a lot of looks on the outside, which is where Nico Collins is lined up. And I'm not saying that Nico Collins is someone that you're going to fade entirely. However, you're going to want to be mindful on how much you are investing in him as far as where you draft him in your upcoming drafts. So the cool thing about what's happening though with Stephon Diggs, though, I hope it works out, but he does have this like diva personality, and I do love the system that's there in place in Houston. I love DeMeco Ryans as a coach, so I would love to believe that they're going to be able to help calm that down. However, the Texans do have a scenario though, where if God forbid, it does not work out with Stephon Diggs, they can get out of that contract next season. So there is a safeguard there. And if that were to happen, which I'm not rooting for, Nico Collins is now back into the mix because he's still a very young player, someone that we saw can make it happen for the Texans. And when Stephon Diggs came there to the Texans, the one player I thought about right away that's going to take a dip is going to be Nico Collins, because we can see Tank Dell working out of the slot. I mean, even in college, Tank Dell had a 67% slot usage, so he was effective in that role, will be effective in it as well in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think that with the combination of Stephon Diggs and with the fact that you'll have Tank Dell in the slot and he'll be just fine, you're going to naturally see Nico take a little bit of a dip. And we're actually seeing it right now with his ADP. He took in after the Stephon Diggs trade, he took a huge dip in his ADP. And yeah, so we're seeing the community also reacting to the Stephon Diggs trade, the same. So if it goes down too low, this is someone that may be potentially a good buy, but right now his ADP is still a little bit too high for me, considering that he's still costing you a good amount just to have him on your rosters.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. My sell is going to be, and I know this is on the face, it's going to be, well, duh, but let me just hear me out for a second. My sell is going to be Rondale Moore, newly wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, my immediate reaction when seeing Rondale Moore going to the Falcons, I thought, okay, wide receiver 3. Doubt they're going to go wide receiver in the draft since now they've got Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Rondale Moore, Kyle Pitts. Don't really think, unless it's just way later, don't really think they need another wide receiver. So Rondale Moore, as of right now, we're almost to the halfway, we're almost getting to halftime of this offseason here. So we're rounding out the second quarter, but he's listed as the wide receiver 2 on the depth chart. Doesn't really seem right to me. So, but I will reference a trade that I was recently able to make in my dynasty league that I believe, if this is the value you can get for this player because of belief with Kirk Cousins, give it to me all day, baby. Right now, we've seen with Rondale Moore at his 3 years in Arizona, he finished wide receiver 67, wide receiver 82, and wide receiver 66. He's 5'7", weighs 180. He's very quick, very shifty. He's an okay route runner, but obviously his best ability would be served as his ceiling would be a okay version of Tank Dell. That's like his ceiling. And he has never hit that. He's not going to hit that, in my opinion. And I do think that he'll be the Quez Watkins of the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver room, which for real NFL is fine because he'll be there in some certain moments. But for fantasy football, we don't really want that unless, we're in a 16, 20-team league where, it's so deep. But we're not, that's not the majority of leagues out there. Right now, Rondale Moore on Keep Trade Cut, and again, this is the point of reference here, is being valued. Same with players like Chikakonkwo, tight end on the Titans. A high third-round pick in the 2024 rookie draft. Dameon Pierce, Khalil Herbert, Jalen Wright. Now, it does start to trail off there. But would I rather have a 2024, let's say 301, or would I rather have Rondale Moore? Give me the 301. Would I rather have Chig Okonkwo or Rondale Moore? As much as Chig let us all down last year, I think he will get more opportunities than Rondale Moore will for fantasy, unless the Titans do something at tight end. Give me Chig Okonkwo. That one's a little closer. Now, I was able to pull this off in a going into year 4 home dynasty league with some of my buddies who, we all do take this very seriously, but I was able to make this trade. This was before the Stephon Diggs trade, but I traded away. Now, I do still believe that the Bills are going to get somebody, and especially now, but I was able to trade away Rondale Moore for Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 2 at the time, and will still be for the Buffalo Bills. And I would much rather give me Curtis Samuel all day with that 3-year contract. He's 26 years old. He's a better route runner. He is a good receiver. I mean, when given the opportunity, he actually is a good receiver. He's just always been in terrible situations. We look last year. He was with the Commanders where they've got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel are battling all year for that wide receiver 2 role. I'd much rather have Curtis Samuel than Rondale Moore. My point in bringing Rondale Moore as a sell, even though it's a clear, I would sell him. Look at the value you're able to get right now, because obviously the closer we get to the season, the more all the casuals are going to start coming back. You got people in your dynasty leagues right now. You got those 2 or 3 guys that throughout the offseason until your rookie draft, they're not there. They're not paying attention, and they're not in the chat. They're not focusing on nothing. They'll come back when the rookie draft starts, and they'll be there until the season starts. Those types of players are the ones who typically don't care to do trades like these. They don't care. That sure, why? I don't care. I'll take a chance on Rondale Moore, or I don't care for. There are a lot of people like that who right now, for some reason, would rather have Rondale Moore than a Curtis Samuel. That would rather have a Rondale Moore than an early third-round pick. If that's the case, I'll take the third-round pick. I'll take my chances on a player there at the 301. And if that's in a 12-man rookie draft, who knows? We might be getting one of these running backs that get pushed down. This wide receiver class is so deep. I'd much rather have still one of these deeper wide receivers than a Rondale Moore.
Good take, man. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did seem like a duh scenario because you're right. I mean, but no, I mean, overall good. And I think because I mean, didn't they also get Darnell Mooney as well?
They did. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is the fact that he's listed as wide receiver 2. And again, long offseason, this will all change. It's not going to be until week 1. We'll see weird depth charts even in the preseason. But if for right now people believe that, Rondale Moore is the wide receiver 2 on this team, hands down.
So, and then you also have Pitt still, so But okay, cool. So with that, let's go ahead and briefly, we wanted to actually discuss this earlier, but go ahead and, if you don't mind, Mr. Spencer, let's go ahead and go over the details of the Stephon Diggs trade, and then we can do a quick reaction and see what we think about what will happen with Stephon Diggs now with the Texans.
Yeah, so the Buffalo Bills is, this happened last week, but after our podcast last week had aired, so we aren't able to talk about it till now. But the Buffalo Bills did finalize a trade to send 4-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans. Full trade details was the Bears receive a 2025 second-round pick, so not even a second-rounder in this draft. Texans receive Stephon Diggs, a 24 6th and a 25 5th round. So immediately, and of course, the later in the week, the Texans ate up the rest of his contract to allow him to possibly be a free agent at the end of the season. And of course, that is supposed to incentivize him to go out there and ball out for their team so that his value will be even higher. So that was the point of doing that. My take immediately is, of course, as of right now, I think I'm trying to sell Stephon Diggs to that CJ Stroud owner, to that Houston Texans fan if you got him in your league, because they are going to overpay for him. Now, it's going to be similar, not the exact same value, but it's going to be very similar to when A.J. Brown got traded to Philly. Any Philly fan in your league is going to overpay for A.J. Brown. That's just what it is. Or Saquon Barkley. Any Philly fan in your league is going to overpay for Saquon Barkley. Any Texans fan in your league is going to overpay for the wide receiver 1 of their team, especially if they're a Texans fan that has C.J. Stroud. So that was my immediate thought, and actually exactly what I did in my dynasty league. I had Stephon Diggs and I had Josh Allen. Now, the moment he got traded, the Texans fan in my league said, "Hey, what do you want for Stephon Diggs?" So I traded away Stephon Diggs, a 26 first, a 25 third, and a 26 third. And in return, I got Jordan Addison, a 25 first, and the 203 in the 24 draft. So he gets Stephon Diggs, a first and 2/3. I get Jordan Addison, a first and a second. And honestly, I understand that losing Kirk Cousins and having the wide receiver 2 for Sam Darnold or a rookie is not very pleasing looking at Jordan Addison. To me, I've got a lot more wide receivers on my depth chart that I can allow Jordan Addison to take time to develop. I've got a future first and a early second round pick. I know I'm giving up the instant next 2 years of incredible play that I believe Stephon Diggs still has. But if this is the type of trade that I can make for Stephon Diggs with that Texans player, with that CJ Stroud owner, give it to me all day. Other than that, though, if you don't have Diggs, you're not a Texans fan, and you don't have CJ Stroud, I don't think I'm buying him because it's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh, he's gone to the Texans, who coming off of the greatest rookie QB season of all time. The person selling him, I think you're going to have to overpay for Stephon Diggs. So I'm not buying him. If you have him and you don't want to sell him, I don't think you necessarily have to. But I do think if there's a Texans fan or CJ Stroud fan, I'm selling him to him. Otherwise, it's probably a hold.
Yeah, I'm actually in a scenario. This isn't a super flex league, but this is a dynasty league, 1 quarterback, and I have CJ Stroud. And I actually was getting into the ear of the guy that had Stephon Diggs, and rightfully so right now. He's looking to really get as much as he possibly can because I have the 104 overall pick, and I also own the 103. So I was able to get it through a trade. But anyways, the point is he wanted my 103 and I think my 104 for Diggs, and that's just an overspend. Even and rightfully so, he wanted the gauge to see, okay, where is Ivan at right now with how bad does he want the stack? And because I have depth right now at the wide receiver position, I was like, no, I'm good. I'll wait because just like you said, I think that Diggs has a 2 to 3 year window where he could still be good, but I'm more of the proponent of I would much rather trade early on a player than it is trying to be desperate and get him and then overspend. And then I'm left with not much depth, especially with draft picks for someone in the short term. So
I agree.
But all right, cool. So, sorry, go ahead. Oh, and actually, you know what? Can I add one more thing? I think that with this trade, though, I would strongly encourage everyone pay really close attention on who Buffalo drafts because they need wide receivers. They need them in the worst way. And whoever they end up getting with either the 28th pick or if they were to trade up, I think that individual will have to be someone that will be worthwhile in fantasy. So pay close attention with who Buffalo ends up drafting at the wide receiver position, because even if it's I don't think it'll be someone like an Xavier Worthy because of the small frame. They're going to need at least someone that has the build or the prototype of a wide receiver one, which is why I do like Brian Thomas Jr., the best, maybe even like a Adonai Mitchell, but yeah, we'll see. Very, very intriguing. So, okay, cool. So that was a little bit of a curveball that we threw in there. So let's go ahead and get into the verse of the week so we can round things out and land this plane. So with that, Mr. Spencer Smith, would you mind kicking us off with this week's verse of the week?
Absolutely. My verse of the week this week is coming from Ezekiel 36:26, and this is out of the New King James Version. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And to me, this is basically saying, I'm going to take out that stubborn heart. I'm going to take out that hard heart of listening, heart of tenderness, heart of responsiveness. I'm going to take that out and I'm going to give you a tender heart. I'm going to give you a heart that is responsive, that desires to speak more with me and to grow with me, either in conversation, by prayer, by works. And I believe that that is what that verse is saying, that when you come to Christ and, because sometimes you'll hear stories of like, now just because this didn't happen to me personally doesn't mean it never happened. So if this happened to you, hallelujah, praise God. And I mean that. To me, I didn't have the situation where when I came to Christ, immediately I was done cussing, I was done drinking, I was done smoking, I was done doing all these things that I was doing years ago. That just didn't happen to me immediately. I still had these desires that through prayer and through conversation and fellowship with Christ, especially in quiet times, whether that be in a corner of my closet or that be when my wife goes to work and I'm in those quiet moments with God and I'm open with God. God knows all these things, but the part where the relationship comes in is when you humble yourself and you're discussing with him like you would a close friend. That's what Christ is to us, that God, I'm struggling with these things. God, I want my mouth to not speak this way. I want my tongue to not speak this way. I don't want to have this desire to smoke these things. I don't want to have this desire to go out and act this way. And over time of changing small things like the music you listen to, the things that your eyes watch, the things you allow your eyes to come into your eyes, all these types of things that over time through prayer and a relationship with Christ that you have conversatingly, I believe he takes out that heart of stone, the heart of I'm going to do what I want. I'm a Christian. God, me and you were cool. And thanks for saving me. And I'm still going to do the things I want to do, but God, you're my guy. Take that heart out and replace it with the heart of responsiveness, a tender heart, one that desires to listen and to be calm and to learn with Christ and to grow with Christ, not only through that friendship of prayer and conversation, but also the love of the Father and you, his son. So Ezekiel 36:26, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh.
Amen. Good stuff, brother. Yeah, that's a really great verse. And the one I'm going to share with you guys actually comes to, you talked about putting on, the armor, and I'm going to talk about the race of faith, which comes from the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse number 1. Let me go ahead and share that. Oh, my bad. Let me put myself back on there. Sorry. Technical difficulty there. All right, cool. Here we go. So I have mine. It's a Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. And it reads like this. It says, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great of a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which is so easily ensnares us. And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And I love this verse because, number one, it gives us an action. And the action is to lay aside every weight. And when I think about every weight, as a husband, as a father, I think about the stresses of being a provider, the stresses and the anxiety one may get about whether or not they're doing a good job as a dad, as a husband. And that is weight that I need to set aside. It's not saying that it's weight I shouldn't be feeling, right? But I need to set it aside so then that way I can continue to run this race with Christ, through Christ, because he's the one. And actually, if you read verse 2, which is the verse right after this one, it says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So here's the cool thing, is that we could be the one to initiate the faith, but Christ is going to be the one for his glory that will help us complete that faith that we have to continue and complete the race that we have. So I just want to encourage you as an individual right now that if there is a weight that you have, a stress, a worry, all that's great to feel. Like, feel that. Like, it's very healthy for us to feel those things. But I want to encourage you that there is hope through that Jesus Christ is the one that gives you the hope to complete the race that we're in. So right now, if you're starting something out right now, like for example, me and Spencer are doing this venture, and there are times where, we can have doubt as a content creator, whether or not it's going to work out, but we're going to continue to press forward in faith, knowing that, what, we are doing this for the right reasons, and we're going to believe that God will help us continue with endurance. And because it's natural for us to have things that are going to slow us down. But I want to encourage you that because you have Jesus, he will help you complete the race that he has called you to. And there's this quote that I'll close it off with, saying that when God gives vision, he also provides provision. So be encouraged and finish the race that you're called to.
Amen, brother. Amen. I love that, man. And hey, look, I agree. And one thing, and we're going to have to hop off here, but one thing that I love that you brought up is, and this isn't just for content creation, it could be, when I was really going hard, growing up, I wanted to be a musician like my father so bad. I wanted to be a rock star, man. My dad was a touring musician, and man, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a rock star so bad. In middle school and high school, I would take so many weekends, so many nights just playing my guitar, learning it. When I graduated, I joined a couple bands. I started touring. I thought, man, this is it. This is the life. And ran my bank account completely dry. Wow. And I realized that, the way I was doing it, I wasn't doing it the right way because, number one, I wasn't doing it for God. And I was doing it for myself, but I was doing it stupidly. I wasn't even making smart decisions. And but when it comes to, this new venture that I did with content creation, I didn't go to school for anything. I did all this myself, and we're going into year 3 now. And I have decided since last year that I want to do this so badly that I'm going to do it regardless. I'm going to make sure I'm not doing anything that's hurting myself financially, because that's not responsible. I'm going to make sure I'm not doing anything that's hurting any other relationships time-wise. That's not responsible. Christ wouldn't want that either. And with this podcast, especially where we do our verse of the week, I feel like we want to encourage y'all out there that when you guys have anything in mind, whether that is you're a musician, whether that is you love to paint, whether that is you love to get in front of a camera, you love to get in front of a microphone, you love to mow yards, you love to, whatever it is, you've got that landscaping business, whatever it is that you love to do it. The biggest thing is consistency. So week 1, month 1, year 1, year 2, maybe it's not where you thought it was going to be. But I guarantee if you did it every day, every week, every month, going into year 2, you're going to be so much further that if that year 1 saw you, the day 1 saw you, they'd be so proud of where you're at going into year 2. It's incredible. We don't think of that because we're always looking at every day,
Right.
when we start, we're like, dang, we only got 20 likes on a post. Why don't we have
Right.
200? When we get to 200, we're at the playing field where like now the people we're seeing have 2,000 likes all the time. And it's like, dang, why don't we have to? And then when you get 2,000 likes all the time, it's, well, now you're starting to see people get 10,000 likes all the, and it's, dang, I wish. You got to quit looking at it like that. Be thankful where you've grown to, be thankful where you've gotten, because it's only going to get bigger. Consistency is key. I believe in that. But hey,
that is so good.
That's it, man.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, thank you so much once again. We can't thank you enough. We have the best time doing this content. And we just want to remind you, as always, you could subscribe to our audio podcast by making sure that you're not only following us on Apple as well as Spotify, but leaving us a review, giving us that feedback, because we would love to make sure that we're providing the best quality, best content for you. And for you, for those of you that don't know, we are now going live every single week, Monday or Tuesday morning. We'll give you guys an update on what that'll be, but we're going to go live every week to go along with the audio podcast. And as always, Spencer, why don't you go round us out and let us know how people can follow us on the social media platforms?
Absolutely, man. Dynasty Wire on Instagram, Dynasty Wire on Tickety Talk, and at the Dynasty Wire on X, artist formerly known as Twitter. And just stay over there, because we're always, especially on Twitter, we're trying to release polls, and whether that be for trades or values or whatever. So definitely make sure you give it a follow. And if nothing else, make sure you subscribe and follow the Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, because we'll be releasing it every week.
That's right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys in the next episode.
See you. Boom.